Welcome to Equipping Leaders, a podcast where I share tools and perspectives to equip leaders in self-development and team connection. I am your host, Natasha, and I am excited to share today's episode with you. Today's episode is a solo cast on the psychology of workplace layout. I know that many of us are currently working in a remote or hybrid environment, so I'm going to approach this from multiple perspectives. First, I will talk about the psychology of workspace layout for those who are back in the office, and then things to consider for when we return to the workspace. Second, I will address how we can modify our workplace to meet our needs if we're not in an organization that can support this concept. Finally, I will talk about how to use these ideas as a remote worker when your workspace is your home, and not everyone has the privilege of having multiple spaces, or sometimes even a single space, where they can create an environment that is designed to make the most out of work. The concept of workplace psychology has been around for a long time, and there are several companies whose businesses are based on this psychology and how it continues to evolve. When we are at work, there are several cognitive tasks that we need to do. We need to share information in larger groups, collaborate with others on teams, have one-on-one conversations, and do focused work that requires discipline and quiet. In a previous job, I worked with an amazing leader who took workplace psychology seriously. He truly wanted people to enjoy being at work and have the experiences that they needed to be creative and innovative in the workplace. Together, we visited some of the businesses who specialize in these workplaces, and it was enlightening to learn just how we could create that space with the resources that we had. We took what we learned and created collaboration rooms where teams could come together, everyone could plug into the technology and use the large screens in the room, and all of the walls were covered with whiteboards for brainstorming and planning. We had larger rooms that could fit everyone at the same time, with screens throughout the room, raised tables and chairs so everyone was essentially at eye height with the presenter who would be standing, and plenty of space for people to move around and not interrupt everyone if they needed to step out. We had a respite room, which was a relaxing space where people could book 15-minute blocks of time, sans technology, to just sit and regroup. There were individual offices, and then there were group offices. To allow people who had group offices to also have the space of focused work, there were rooms where people could essentially sit in pods where they would not be interrupted. Even the director's conference room was designed in a way that allowed people to brief him and then leave after their briefing portion without messing up the flow of the briefing or the meeting. There were a lot of interesting things that we put throughout the building to make sure people had a lot of different space options so they could find the place where they could do the work that they needed to do. Another big aspect of this workplace psychology is to help people feel like the whole building is their office and place of work, not just their one little workspace. Instead, they could work anywhere throughout the building, get great collaboration done, and actually enjoy the workplace. Workplace layout is also valuable in the sense that there are different personality preferences, even beyond introversion and extroversion, and the access to different spaces where they can do work in their own way is really valuable. Many people would love to have a window in their office or close to their desk, and there are some personality preferences that actually need those types of amenities to fully engage and be their best selves at work. One of the reasons why I love talking about workplace layout psychology is that we are really in an interesting place in history where there is a lot more consideration and care around how we care about people at work. We, thankfully, no longer live in a time when we're just expected to show up and be eternally grateful that you have a job and is always being threatened by those in power. Now we're considering how we draw people in, make work more interesting and more fulfilling, and provide people with an environment that actually empowers productivity and collaboration. Now, not everyone has this type of workplace for whatever reason, but you can still find places where you can do different types of work. Challenge yourself to find a space away from your desk, but where you could also take your laptop and get some quiet, focused work done. When you need to work with others and collaborate, find a space where you can all comfortably come together. There are times, of course, where it is necessary and appropriate to be at your desk, but when you can get away, it also helps with different feelings of ownership and well-being in the workplace. Now, that is all well and good for the workspace, but how about those who are permanent remote workers or who are working remotely right now? Some people are fortunate enough that they can set up a workspace in their home, and that can lead to the same type of workplace fatigue that one experiences at the office. If this is your situation, I would recommend finding different places around the home or a local space like a park where you can do certain types of work. I am very fortunate that I am a remote team member, and when I'm doing certain activities, I will be at my desk in the workspace that I set up for myself. If I'm working on creating something or I need to read through some different things, I'll move to the living room where my dogs can join me on the couch, or I'll move outside to the balcony space where my dogs can also be on my lap, but where I can also get some fresh air and work from the large outdoor chair I have there. Sometimes I will even work right from the kitchen island just to be sitting in a different place. I will also acknowledge that I do not have kids running around, so I don't need to set certain boundaries around areas within the home while I'm working, so I can work from a lot of different spaces. When I consider those who have other people in their home, if you are doing work that does not require you to be fully engaged and focused, such as being in a meeting or a presentation, find ways to break up your day by moving around the home. Leaving your home to work in another space can be great too. If your local coffee shop is open, you can go there or find a local park and have a seat at a picnic table. Depending on where you live and what you have access to will determine what you can do. But what I would encourage you to do is think outside of a regular workspace. If you love being outside, you can work on finding some ways to work outside. Breaking up work by going for a walk or having a desk that faces a window can be a couple of easy fixes for the desire to be outside. When it comes to workplace layout psychology, it is also important to remember that you need to find what works for you, your team, and your organization. Some of these things may not work for every organization, but keep in mind that something may sound like it will not work or may be something that you have never tried before, so it just feels uncomfortable. Try different things and see what works for the individuals on your team. Workplace psychology has come a long way from just open office areas or cubicles, and it continues to grow. I am really excited to see what emerges to support the hybrid environment. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Equipping Leaders podcast. For more leadership development content, you can visit my website, natashacheyenne.com, where you will find my leadership journal with dozens of articles, and the Cultivation Cafe, which is always growing and has leadership frameworks, book recommendations, and inclusion and mental health resources. You can also follow me on Instagram at novel_Natasha or at Equipping Leaders Podcast, and on Twitter at Natasha Cheyenne. Join me next week for another episode.